Hello Magic Makers, Drew here. And since this is the first official video for our Creations channel, I thought I would discuss the product that started it all. But before I get into that real quick, I do want to say the holiday season is fastly approaching, and I just want to wish all of you a happy season. Whatever holiday you celebrate or holidays you celebrate, I hope that you are safe. I hope that you are smart about it, but most importantly, I hope that you have fun and that you enjoy this time. I believe I touched on this in the intro video, so bear with me. Basically, fairly early on into my practice, I decided that I wanted to make my own espit candle for the coming espit. I didn't really have supplies for making candles. A few years before this, there were some friends of the family who had sort of given me hand-me-down materials that they had used in making candles, but I didn't really have anything left from that, except I know that I had wax dye to color candles, and I may have had some corded wick. I can't remember about that, but I didn't really have anything to make the candles. And I knew in my mind what I wanted. I did not want a jar candle. I didn't have any molds, and I wasn't prepared to go out and buy any. So I knew I wanted it to be a freestanding pillar type candle, and I wanted to fill it with herbs associated with the espit and color it to correspond, at least in my mind at that time, to the espit. Now in high school, I was in love with candles. I've always been in love with candles, but I always wanted them around and to be burning them, but I did not have my own source of income. So I got candles when I got them, or I stole them from the rest of the house if there were some in the rest of the house. But having said that, I would melt down the remnants of any candles, household candles that I had, and fill up the jar again and make a new candle. That way I always had candles. So I already had that experience and knew how to do that. So that's kind of where I took it when I made my first espit candle. I just took remnants of household candles, if you will, home decor candles, and melted them down, added wax, and then I have no memory of coming up with my method for hand molding. The only thing I could say is, again, in high school, I used to play with wax as it cooled and make things like wax roses. So I was familiar with the concept of shaping, and somehow inspiration struck. Yeah, I devised a method for hand molding candles. I am not going to get into the details of that. It's kind of at this point like a trade secret. It wasn't long after I began to make my hand molded candles that my husband began to make his. And our candles are very different, but the process that we use to make them is almost identical. Not quite, but almost. At this time, I had become pretty good friends, my husband as well, with the owner of our local witchy metaphysical shop. And actually, it wasn't long after I started making my own espit candles that I began working at that shop. We began to celebrate all of the espits and the sabbats and do all kinds of spell work with my boss lady. She is a Wiccan and practicing witch, and so, we formed this loose circle, and we would get together and do ritual on the espits and the sabbats. And when doing so, we would burn my candles, and for other spell work, we might burn some of my husband's. So she was exposed to our candles, and she loved our candles, so she invited us very generously to sell our candles out of her shop, and that's kind of how the whole thing started. So I just want to show you real quick. This is not the very first candle I made because I burnt it, but this is one of the very first candles that I ever made. I made this in 2007. It is made of the remnants of old candles. It was for the seed moon in March. I had made two, and this was before we were selling them out of the shop, so they were just for me. I made a couple so I'd have them for the next year, but by the next year I had a whole new system, and this got put away, and I found it years ago. And now it's just kind of, I just want to keep it. It's like a memory. So my husband and I both make hand molded candles for the shop, and our candles are very different. I make lots of candles for the shop, but the only hand molded candles that I make for the shop are for the espits or the sabbats. While my husband makes, I think he has more than 20 different candles in the shop for any number of intentions. Today, I'm only going to talk about his full moon candle and his dark moon candle because this is our channel together. And so there are going to be videos where we'll both be here, and I would rather give him the opportunity to speak for himself about his candles, but I do want to talk about them in this video. So I figured I'd choose the moon candles because they correspond to my Espit candles in a way. Let's talk about my husband's candles first. So the two candles I'll be talking about for him today are his full moon candle and his dark moon candle. So my husband's candles look kind of like they've been compared to Stonehenge or something, right? Like rocks, or I don't know, right? They're really cool, very rustic, lumpy bumpy. We both imbue our candles with herbs associated with the candle's intent. That's kind of where the similarities end. Not exactly. You'll see. So my husband uses paraffin wax for his candles. As I said, he chooses colors and herbs that correspond to the candle's intention. Now, specifically with his moon candles, I know like he wants to make this full moon candle on the full moon, and he wants to make this dark moon candle on the dark moon. That's what he shoots for every time he makes them. Now, there have been occasions, life happens, things happen, and he couldn't get it right on that day, so he may make them 1 or 2 days before or 1 or 2 days after, but typically he makes them on the moon they correspond to. That's very important to him when it comes to these moon candles. Also, after they've cured for at least 24 hours, he'll take them and he'll imbue them with energy. He'll feed energy into them. And I don't know if he has something special that he says, which if he does, he may not share that with us. I don't know if he's talking I can't tell. And honestly, my husband and I, we don't question each other a lot about our practices and what we do. We just kind of do it, and like we get the vague idea of what the other one's doing. Maybe every once in a while we'll be specifically like, what was that? What are you doing? But we just kind of, I don't know. It's his practice. It's his thing. I have mine. We just kind of leave each other alone. But that's something, like I said, when we talk to him in future videos about his candles, that we can kind of question him about and see if he can give us a little bit more insight into what he's doing. So for example, with this dark moon candle, it can be burned on the dark moon. And with the full moon candle, it can be burned on the full moon, though they're not limited to that, because the full moon candle is imbued with herbs that would typically be associated with a full moon. So, oh gosh, again, I don't know specifically. Whenever I do the write-ups for our website, I will question him and be like, the herbs you use correspond to what exactly? Because he could choose a million different ones for a million different reasons, right? But I mean, anything from, balance and completion, success, protection, transformation, anything that is associated with the full moon. If you're trying to do a working that has that energy, you could use this candle. And the same is true for the dark moon. So, divination, even spirit contact, self-reflection, meditation, endings and beginnings, that kind of deal. This candle could be used in any kind of workings where that is the intent. But of course, they make perfect candles for any Espit ritual, full moon, new moon, whatever. Then you have mine. Mine are very rustic. Mine are made of beeswax, my Espit and Sabbat candles. They also have colors and herbs that are chosen because they are associated with said Espit or Sabbat. So like this is January, and it is this pretty pink color, and this is February, this dark blue color. This is November's. Nice pretty purple, and this was December's. It's also blue, but it's a paler shade of blue. While the herbs I use for my candles essentially stay the same, sometimes I tweak the recipes, but the colors can change drastically. If there's more than one color associated with a moon or a Sabbat, it just depends. It's just my fancy. It's whatever I feel like in that moment. I'm going to make that candle that color. Not to mention, this is the shade this year for my Wolf Moon January Espit candle. Last year it was far darker, more of a like very dark on the way to magenta pink. So it just depends again on how I feel in that moment when I'm making the candles. My Sabbath candles have different sort of embellishments on them as just sort of a decoration really, but it, in my mind at least, does correspond to the Sabbath. So for example, Samhain has this nice little star anise, and Yule this year has this little evergreen. Having said that, that's apt to change year to year as well. It's just what I have on hand and what I feel called to put on the candle, as long as I feel it corresponds with the Sabbath in some way. So I have done that with my Espit candles. I mean, again, you see this has seeds all over the outside. I have in the past done that. I'm kind of moving out of that. I just want, I think, to keep it simple with the Espits and just have them be plain candles and then embellish my Sabbaths. The other part of my process that is different than my husband's when it comes to these moon candles is that, again, he tries to make them on the moon. Obviously, it wouldn't do me very much good to make this on the January full moon unless I did it the year before I wanted to sell it. So I don't do that. My process for making my candles is moon phase and daily astrological influence. A lot of my candles will be made during the waxing, but not all of them. The February moon, for example, is good for releasing and clearing and cleansing and good, all that good stuff. So I could potentially make that during the waning, and obviously I could make Samhain during the waning. The other thing is daily astrological influence, and that of course is that certain days are ruled by certain planets, and so they carry a certain energy, and so I choose the day that best aligns with the influence of that moon or that Sabbath and make the candle on that day. The last thing that I have to say about our hand molded candles is that they are a little wild. We have a preferred method for how we burn them. We have this fishbowl. We have been using this fishbowl since 2007 to burn our candles. It's wonderful for outdoor ritual. But we have this little sheet of specific special instructions that we send out with any of our candles, loaded or hand molded, just to make sure that everyone's safe. I mean, common sense dictates that you don't walk away from a burning candle, particularly a spell candle, but ours, because they are just loaded with herbs, are very flammable and they burn a little crazy. I will insert a picture. And just FYI, what our little disclaimer warning says: our hand molded and loaded candles do not burn in the same manner as factory candles. They are filled with herbs, making the burn unpredictable. We recommend that you put them on a fire-safe plate before putting them in a cauldron or pot. Our preferred method is putting a bit of dirt or sand in a large fishbowl and standing them in the center. However you choose to burn them, do so with caution and absolutely never leave them unattended. Remember that when burning our candles, we are not only playing with fire, but we are playing with magic, and both can be quite unpredictable. So I think that that gives you a pretty good picture of what it is that we are doing here with our hand molded candles, what that's all about. Like I said, in the future, I will discuss specific candles, probably a little more in depth, but that's what I've got for you today. So thank you so much for checking out our creations channel and listening to me talk about our product. And until next time, much love and gratitude.